All right. Perfect. Thank you so much. Expanding on the previous discussion, it's important to recognize that technology goes far beyond the realms of pandemic prevention and treatment. So, therefore, it has enormous potential to transform the healthcare industry as well as to provide numerous benefits. Our upcoming panel discussion will delve into the fascinating topic of transforming healthcare with tech. Without further ado, everyone, let's welcome our panelists of experts who will share their insights in this respect. Everyone, please join me by putting your hands together. Let's welcome Mr. Adam Mendelsohn, CEO of Vivani Medical Inc., Professor Darwin Lau, Associate Professor, the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Mr. Jimmy Wong, General Manager, Konica Minolta Business Innovation Headquarters, Asia Pacific, as well as Dr. Felix Lee, Co-CEO of the GBA Healthcare Group and also Head of Healthcare Investments of Chow Fook. Thank you so much. Chow Fook Enterprises. So everyone, please make yourself comfortable and I'll hand the stage over to you. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So what a great pleasure to be here. The topic we're going to cover is called Transforming Healthcare with Tech. And I think that's very different from what Alibaba or the brand stands for because we think technology is here to serve a purpose. And in terms of transforming healthcare tech, we have three very esteemed panel speakers. We've been actually discussing what areas to cover. And we're going to have an overall framework, which is if we're going to use tech to transform healthcare, how are we going to make healthcare more accessible and more affordable and more sustainable? So I'm going to invite each of the panel speakers to give us an introduction of their company. And I'm going to pass over the clicker to Adam. So let's start with Adam.
Thank you, Felix, and thank you to the organizers for having me here. My name is Adam Mendelsohn. I'm the CEO of Vivani Medical. I'm very excited to share with you what Vivani Medical is working on to help make medicine more accessible and affordable, and to help have a real-world impact in how medicines that the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industry have developed that perform exceedingly well in clinical trials. But unfortunately, in spite of all of these new medicines which have been approved, the prevalence of chronic diseases only continues to get worse. And one of the main reasons for this is, let's see if I can get this to work. Okay, I'll just talk. I don't see my slides. But one of the main reasons why these medicines don't have the impact in the real world is because of access, but also because people don't do a very good job at taking the medicines as prescribed. Drugs don't work for people that don't take them. At Vivani Medical, we are developing a very small device that can be placed under the skin and can guarantee medication adherence for many months at a time. We're focusing initially on delivering a drug in the GLP-1 class, for which drugs have approvals in type 2 diabetes and in weight loss. And we believe that by guaranteeing adherence, which only about 50% of people in the real world actually adhere to their medicines, we can have a tremendous impact on improving the health of patients, on reducing costs for payers. It has been measured that about $5,500 in avoidable expenses for patients with type 2 diabetes are associated with them not taking their medicine as prescribed, which could be saved. And in addition to that, because our product will only require that we manufacture 2 devices per year, we expect to have much lower costs compared with many of the injection pens that are currently in the market, for which 12 need to be manufactured per year, enabling us to potentially offer these products at a more attractive price point to enable them to be accessible for more people to be able to benefit from the tremendous potential that these drugs have. So let's see if maybe I don't have slides. That's okay.
It's okay. We can make the slides available maybe afterwards, right? Oh, there you go. It's working now. Yeah.
Okay. So here is a picture of my hand holding our very small device. And it consists of a titanium reservoir that holds a very high concentration of medicine and a material that we've developed from scratch that enables the constant delivery of medicine over many months using an array of titanium oxide nanotubes. I'll briefly talk about how that works before I get into the next steps, but when the product is fully assembled, the only path for the drugs to leave is through the inner diameter of each of these nanotubes, which they were the size of a golf ball, the length of the nanotube would be about 10 stories tall. That's a very long path that the drugs have to traverse before they can become available. We use a process called atomic layer deposition to tune these openings to be approximately the same size or close enough in size to an individual drug molecule that the interactions that the drug has with the walls of the nanotube constrains the diffusion, enabling substantially constant release even as the concentration decreases. And this is what we've shown can work over many months at a time that we're very excited about moving forward into human testing shortly and ultimately into the market. We are developing a number of products for type 2 diabetes and obesity. The third product is being developed as a once-yearly treatment for obesity, and we have a partnership with an animal health company developing a version of this product for companion cats, which actually have a high prevalence of type 2 diabetes, in part because people don't walk their cats like they walk their dogs. And we are addressing the reasons why GLP-1 therapy do not meet their ultimate potential associated with adherence and complexity of treatment, and making sure that we can ensure that these therapies are provided with steady delivery profiles to hopefully avoid some of the tolerability that the existing GLP-1 therapies have suffered from in the real world associated with gastrointestinal effects.
Great. Adam,
so
thank you very
all
much. I think we're going to give a pause there, and we're going to revisit back some of the economics behind the technology. So thank you very much for that. So I want to ask Professor Darwin Lau, who's the professor for robotics at the Chinese University Hospital. Perhaps, Professor, you can introduce to us your version and your vision of how robotics can transform healthcare, as we did during our sharing right before the event.
Thank you. So, yes, it's a pleasure to be here today, and thank you for the organizers to invite us. And I think the session is very interesting. You know, different people from different backgrounds, from having solutions to put it onto the market, to developing an individual product, or even a university, where I come from. So I'll talk a little bit about the work we do at the university, both in terms of myself and also in terms of the colleagues, because I'm part of the COHK Robotics Institute, where we've got a range of colleagues doing different stuff. So, I mean, the range of projects related to healthcare that we work on include from surgical robots, so the ones that are in the hospital theaters, to rehabilitation, to wearable devices that are outside. So for myself...
Let's get the slides on the screen. If I could help the organizers, please. Thank you.
Yeah. So maybe as it's going, I will keep talking. So for myself, the focus is related to healthcare, is actually devices that increase accessibility. So in terms of different things, in terms of prosthetics, that's important. People that have amputation or upper limb impairment, where their fingers may not be so nimble and agile, which could even include elderly, people with osteoarthritis. How do we make devices that they could actually take home and use? And more importantly, not devices that you go into a laboratory to do testing, but you never take home. And that happens quite often at universities. So taking it home is important, so that's the left-hand side with the prosthetics. With the right-hand side is, an extension of that, a work that we're doing called superlimb. So the idea is, as humans, we're born with usually 2 arms, 2 legs, and 10 fingers, 10 toes. So the question that we ask is, what if we had a third hand? And what if we had 8 fingers? How would we, aside from looking a little weird, how else do we function and use? So that's one of the focuses. So you can see in the examples, if I had 3 hands, maybe I could play drums with all 3 hands, or I could control, maybe, for example, use the keyboard with both my hands while using my mouse without having to let go of my keyboard. Something that we take for granted that we'll do. So wearable devices is an aspect that we do. Another aspect we're also looking at in terms of healthcare and accessibility is to help people who may struggle to travel, to be able to travel to other places remotely through a robot and have a immersive experience, an experience that they could travel with, like being there. And that's important to a certain class of people as well. And maybe a final project I'll touch base on that we are given an idea what we do is on robots that could touch someone, comfort them by touching them, giving them strokes or gentle patting in a comfortable way. So a lot of people that may be anxious or the elderly, they need these sort of solutions. So yeah, so these examples probably just highlight the early stage sort of developments that we're doing that we're going to later on move into the society to help people. So yeah, that's a short introduction of what we do.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think the effort on robotics cannot be underestimated. I think most of us are familiar with surgical robots, but actually the more human application of robotics, like the ones that Professor Lau mentioned, right, have a great role to play in transforming healthcare. So next is a more interesting guest that we have, which is Jimmy from Konica Minolta. I think most people know of Konica Minolta. I remember when I first started working about 20 years ago, those printers were made by them. So when I first got invited to know Jimmy, please enlighten us as to what kind of healthcare exposure Konica Minolta is currently looking at.
Thank you, Felix. Can we have the slide on? Yeah. So we're very different, quite different from Adam and what Professor just shared. Like Felix talked about, our core business today, as you can see from the right-hand side here, it's advanced document management and also print technology. We are one of the leading providers in that. And our mission is about imaging to people. And remember that imaging doesn't only restricted to human eyes, human naked eyes. So later I will share a bit about what we mean by all aspect of imaging to people. And last, we are actually 150-year-old or young this year, and innovation is one of the key things that we continue to do over the last 150 years. So as you can see from the top in the middle here, we are about 8 billion, 7.8 to 8 billion USD company today, with about 40,000 employees worldwide. We are Japanese MNC. However, you can see from the two circles on your left, you can see that our distribution of revenue and also employee is quite diversified. About more than 80% of it is outside of Japan, equally distributed between US, Europe, and APAC. And also, if you look at our revenue distribution on the circle in the middle, you can see that almost 80% of our revenue today comes from print, either office print or professional print. However, I think most of you may not know, in the circle that shows around 12% of healthcare business that we have. So this is a business that we have using our imaging as our DNA, using imaging to create medical equipment, which I'll show in the next slide. So you can see in the middle here, there is blue dots. You can see that with over 150 years, in the middle here, we show all the different kind of imaging innovation, imaging products that we have. Specifically, some of you may know that we have a camera. Minolta camera is one of the imaging equipment that we have. So in the past, and then if you look at the far right, you can see that that's what I meant by imaging to people, but not necessarily human eye can see. So you can see that is in the far right, you can see hyperspectral imaging equipment is another equipment that we have in KM. With the DNA of imaging and document processing, advanced material, you can see on the top, we are also, as I mentioned earlier, our core business is in print. So we have various printer, copier, when we first started, and also industrial and commercial printing as well. And then in the bottom, you can see that the various imaging equipment that is in the healthcare space, which I mentioned earlier, MRI, X-ray machines. And then on the top right-hand side, you can see this is where our organization belongs to, the business innovation team, where we are focusing not on the core medical equipment innovation, but looking at in the healthcare space, what are the different things that we can do in a modern world such that to solve manpower crunch issue, to look at how to improve the productivity of clinicians and a healthcare worker.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we've covered a lot of grounds from nano devices to the future of robotics and to having a 150 young old company, right? So the next topic we're going to talk a little bit about, we're at the Alibaba Entrepreneur Fund event, and fund means money. I think healthcare innovation and technology cannot just come out of the blue moon. And, we have a very interesting panel. So, on to my right is Jimmy, who is a multi-billion-dollar market cap company. And then we have a professor, which we were talking about on funding, different funding programs. And then we have Adam, who is actually a listed company on the NASDAQ already. So the next section, we're going to cover a little bit more about how do we think about the funding for innovation? And we're at very different stages here. So I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I'm going to start with Jimmy instead of starting with Adam. So KM is a very big company. And we all know, we've all worked in big companies, small companies before, right? How do you sell your internal stakeholders to invest in innovation? Because innovation never makes money initially. So could you share with us your journey?
Sure. I think it's very interesting that I previously also came from a startup world as well, but I was with KM, the innovation team, for the past 9 years. One of the most challenging things that we see in internal innovation is about change, about transformation. In fact, the internal stakeholders are the most difficult to change. However, what we do in our team is to make sure that we continuously engage our sales force, our sales company, sales team out there, making sure that a new innovation that we bring to the market, we are with them all the way in terms of go-to-market, in terms of having a subject matter expert, SME, to guide them, lead them along the way. And of course, internally, we also need to make sure that when we grew up, when we introduce product, we will continue to have leverage KM internal IP, intellectual property, so that we can make sure that the innovation are aligned with synergies with our core technology. Yeah.
Thank you. Those are very good advices for large corporations who wants to drive innovation. So, Professor, could you share with us, where do you get your money from for all the wonderful tech you're looking at?
Thank you. To the question, money is important because we need it to fund the work we do. So it's a range of sources, and we're discussing, before this, the money comes from a range of different sources, depending on which stage we're in. So when we're at very early stage, like conceptual or even fundamental, then it'd be very largely dependent on the government. The government would be having to support that to plant the seeds. And as the seeds grow, there are more and more funding schemes from both the University Grants Council, both the Innovation Technology Bureau, that fund more applied research, including grants that we must work with industry partners. They require a certain percentage of industry sponsorship, for example, to work on it, or even grants where the industry partner would own the IP, so then they could actually, leverage it, essentially, taking the government support to help the business as well. And on the other hand, especially for healthcare and tech, the university scenario, the whole setting has changed quite a lot. So from being traditional, work in the lab and develop work just for the lab, it's moving out to the word impact. And so there's a lot of funding schemes these days from the university, from the government, that focus on knowledge transfer, focus on social impact, and how to bring things out there to help people. So for example, some grants, the KPI may be publications, for example, right? And some grants, it would be the number of beneficiaries that use the work that we have done. So those things will also help a lot of the healthcare driving. So by having funding schemes from really early to just before or even after commercialization and adoption, that's going to be important. So that's how we get a lot of the work done.
And obviously, you can always ask Alibaba Entrepreneur Fund for money, right? So that's also another good source of funding. Now, lastly but not least, right, Adam, we understand your company, Vivani Medical, actually went through a whole series of mergers and combinations to what it is today. Perhaps you could share with us your journey in your fundraising in the past?
Sure. Yeah, it's been quite an adventure to get to where we are today. The company was founded out of a PhD program that my two co-founders and I completed at UC San Francisco and UC Berkeley under the name of Nano Precision Medical. And initially, we did get some grant funding that was organized through the university. But shortly after that, we were able to, and very fortunately, because the framework for funding for early stage companies, even ones with really big ambitions, is very inefficient to connect with the right kinds of investors. But we were placed in the right geography, and we were fortunate to be able to connect with some individuals that believed in our vision and believed in our mission to fund us for the early stages of our company formation. Along the way, we did attract investment from a big pharmaceutical company named AstraZeneca. They had a strategic interest in the products that we were developing because they own the two products that incorporate the same drug substance that our lead program is delivering. And then about a year ago, we were private throughout that entire time, and we had an opportunity to go through a reverse merger with a listed company that the special committee of the board of directors of that company ultimately proposed to their board, and that ended up with us becoming a publicly traded company, which we have been operating as such for the last year. So the funding has come from a variety of sources. It's been quite an adventure to get to this point. And it's going to be quite an adventure as we proceed going forward, but our ambitions are very big. The opportunity continues to get greater and greater as we proceed, and we continue to make good progress. So as long as we can do that, we can maintain our relationships, I'm optimistic, but it's been quite an adventure.
Thank you, Adam. And you know, so in our organization, we invest in health tech over 10 years now, and we always say that technology is there to serve a purpose. So technology on its own actually may not have a high sustainability. So a knife is only as useful as the purpose you put it to, right? So coming back to our starting position, which is making healthcare more accessible, more affordable, right? And putting on a slightly different hat now. I'm going to ask you some more questions, but you know, maybe shorter answers, right? I'm going to start with Professor Darwin. Okay, if you were an investor, VC investor today, what technology would you actively be looking at?
Okay, so good question. So I'm not exactly an investor, but I have to deal with them, so I have to pitch it to them, right? So I'll go from that perspective. I think it's technology that could actually have the numbers and the beneficiaries, you know, be able to use it. So I think one important aspect is taking technology outside very specific settings into the more general setting, because you know, in some ways the consumer market is very big. So if there's technology like healthcare that could be at the homes rather than being in the hospitals, I think that's, you know, one thing that for me is important, both socially and as, you know, sort of the business aspect. Yeah.
No, definitely. I think home-based care is going to be where the innovation will come next. So Adam, where would you put your money on the next tech in healthcare? Other than your own company, of course.
Yeah. So I have a lot of friends that have kids, and one of the things that struck me that I heard recently was that an 11-year-old is okay to be at home by themselves now. That wasn't the case at all when I was growing up, in part because of technology, because people have cameras, because they can access their parents, etc. So where I see that going is, as I read about all of the aging populations of the world, is how technology can be used to make it more convenient and improve the lives of those people that are caring for these aging populations with not enough population to be able to support them as they proceed. And what I saw yesterday in the event that I attended with all the innovations that are happening, that are being pitched at this event, is a lot of work going into the technologies that I think could be applied that way. So this is outside of my area, but you asked me, so I'm telling you what I think could be interesting as we proceed.
Thank you, Adam. And Jimmy, where would you put your money?
If I would look at this, I would look at how to enable our healthcare clinician workers to be more efficient, more productive, and also to have quality time with their patient or customers. so that we can provide quality service to the customer. So in terms of automation, in terms of tools that can help them to be more efficient. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to wrap this up now. The final question, and I only need 2 words from each of you. So let's start with Jimmy. So 2 words that you would share with entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs on their journey. What would you say to them?
You need to have number one, multiple personality, working with the inside and also with the rest of the core business. Yeah.
So multi-personality and
number 2 is making sure that whatever you do, they must have a link back to your core value of the company, synergies. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Professor Lau, Darwin?
Yeah, so for me, I don't know if it's 1 word or 2 word, but end user. So I think it's important that the person that's using it is the center of all of this.
And Adam?
My 2 words are perseverance and adaptability. Times are going to be difficult. You need to be able to persevere. But if you encounter something that changes your business thesis, don't be afraid to change and change quickly.
Hey, so the final summary. So for all entrepreneurs out there or intrapreneurs out there, so the advices from our panel of experts is adopt a multi-personality approach, speaking to different stakeholders. Always focus on value back to the business. Focus on end users, perseverance, and adaptability. Right. So with that, we're going to wrap up this session on transforming healthcare with tech. Thank you all for your time and for your contribution and support to the Alibaba Entrepreneur Fund. Thank you.